Recording in progress. Got it. Okay, so let's back up just a little bit to the Tanur Rabbanan that we did yesterday, because that brisa the Gemara is going to explore and explain. So it's much more efficient to just read the brisa. So the brisa said Tanur Rabbanan, Anusas atzmo mufutas atzmo. So if the woman, if the Kohen raped or seduced a woman, so on the one hand she is now a beula, right? She's no longer a virgin, but it's because he did it himself. So the brisa says lo yisa, he shouldn't marry her. The imnasa nasui, but if he did, then she remains married. That's a cryptic line, right? Like if they can be married, they should stay married. If not. So the Gemara is going to need to explain this. Anusas chaverum, who is chavero, a woman who was raped or seduced by someone else, lo yisa. So once again, he shouldn't marry her. V'emnasa, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer havlad chalal. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov thinks that since this woman is completely forbidden to marry a Kohen Gadol, so therefore, if she marries him anyway, so the child will be disqualified from the kahuna.
Will it be any Kohen? Not just a Kohen Gadol?
Why? I don't think so. What's the problem with this? She's a beula, right? Only the Kohen Gadol has a prohibition. This woman is not married, so the rape was not a Gilei Araya. She's not a zona. I think yeah, it depends. Well, it would depend on yesterday whether the relations of a single woman alone makes you a zona. But I think we paskin done up that way. Okay, so. So now this all needs to be explained. So now the Gemara says, right, two dots, imnasa nasu. So why? Right, if he marries, the marriage is effective, but they have to get divorced. But he shouldn't marry her in the chafila. So Amar Huda, Amar Rav, umotzi beget. So the marriage is technically effective. However, he has to divorce her. Right? If Kohen Gadol had raped a woman and then married her, the marriage is effective, but they have to get divorced. So, Gemara says, hold on a second. I thought you said the marriage is effective. If the marriage is effective, why does he have to get divorced? So, Rav Yaakov, Lomar, next Lamed, She'ein Mishalem Kenas Be'mefuta. So here's the nafkamina. There are two situations where the man pays a penalty. If the man rapes a woman, so he has to pay her 100 shekel, which is a lot of money, and he also is obligated to marry her, right? He has to do both. If the man seduces Naira Basula, so then he has a choice. He can either pay her 50 shekel, which is also a nice amount of money, or he can marry her. So what is going on over here? So since, technically speaking, the marriage is effective, since the Kohen Gadol married a woman we seduced, that will get him out of the penalty, right? We're going to obligate him to divorce her, but since the marriage was technically effective, we're going to say he chose the route of marriage, he didn't choose the route of penalty, so therefore he's not going to have to pay. That's the only nafkamina. Okay, so now, Gemara says, Azal Rav Gavia mi Beiksil, Amr Lashmaita Kamei de Rav Ash. So Gavia from Beiksil said this teaching over to Rav Ashi, that Rav had said that he has to divorce the woman. So Rav Ashi thought this is very, very strange. Amrlei v'Rav Yochanan Damir Tarvayu bogeras mukaseitz lo yisa. So the Kohen Gadol should not marry a woman over the age of 12 and a half, and he shouldn't marry a woman who lost her hymen due to some physical trauma. Vim nasa nasui. And if he did anyway, so the marriage is effective. So why is that the case? Alma soflios bageras tachtav, soflios mukaseitz tachtav. Any situation that a Kohen Gadol marries a woman, right? At some point in the marriage, they'll be married and she will turn 12 and a half, and they'll be married and she'll no longer be basula. So in those cases, the marriage remains fully effective. So we should say the same svar over here. Hachanami, sofa lios bu'ula tachtav, right? At some point, they're going to get married and she's no longer going to be a virgin. So if the principle we have is that any status the woman has that she would have eventually anyway while married to the Kohen Gadol means that the marriage is not prevented b'diavad and they can remain married, we should say the exact same thing. If the Kohen Gadol rapes a woman and then marries her, we should say, since she was going to have relations with them anyway, once they got married, the marriage should be allowed to remain. And the Gemara says that's a good question. Kasha, we don't have an answer. It's interesting. The Rambam Paskins like Rav, we do have this distinction between the case of rape and the cases of the Bogeres and Lukas 8, but Rav Ashi did not really understand why. Okay, now we move on to the second part of the Brisa, which said Anusas Chavero Umufudas Chavero Lo Yisa. So if the woman had been seduced or raped by somebody else, so the Kohen Gadol should marry her. Right? Yaakov says she's totally disqualified from the Kohen Gadol. Therefore, if she marries him anyway, the Vlad will be a Chalal. That is not true. So Amr from Rav, Halacha Kirabi Eliezer ben. We're going to pass like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, even though correct, that's going to become Kavanaki, right? Which came up earlier, and it's going to come up. It's going to come up in a couple of lines. Yeah, exactly. So the Vlad is a Chala. Now, Amri. Another way, this is quoted from Rav. Amri from Rav. My time is really ben Yaakov. Why did he think that the woman's children will be Chalalik? The answer is Savala Rabbi Elazar. So he held like Rabbi Elazar, who we had at the top of the previous Amud, right? Who said that any this goes back to what we were saying a few minutes ago, that any relations that a woman has when she is single will render her a zona. So since she is a zona because she had relations, now it wasn't her fault, she was raped, but that doesn't matter. She had relations at the end of the day with someone she wasn't allowed to, and therefore she cannot marry a Kohen. That is the explanation to be given right now. And the Gemara says, hold on a second. There's no way that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov held like Rabbi Elazar about a single woman. Why? Because we do not paskin like Rabbi Elazar. We do not paskin that relations while a single woman renders her a zona. The Kaimalan Mishnas Rabbi Eliezer Kavanaki. Right? He very, very carefully filtered everything he learned, and if he said something, it's almost always halacha lamaisa. So it'd be very surprising for him to paskin like a shita. We don't paskin like Vilu b'ha'amar of Amar Marav ain halacha ki Rabbi Elazar. Right? So if we don't paskin Rabbi Elazar, it's doubtful that was the rationale for Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. The Gemara says kasha. Okay, touche. That is a good point. Fine. Now Rav Ashi Amar. So here's the basis for the debate. The Gemara had at home had the pasuk on the side, right? Does the article have the pasuk for what all these prohibitions are? It's like almana grusha something lo yisa. Yeah, right. So the first half of the pasuk is an explicit lo sase, right? All those women, and then he has an assay to marry a Vesula. So the question is, what is the status of the woman who he is prohibited to? This is an example of an Isser assay, right? It is a positive commandment which creates a prohibition. So it says he must marry a virgin. Therefore, he's not allowed to marry someone else. So the Gemara explains, but I lost the place on a second. There we go. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar Yesh Chalav Machavi Assay. So if the Kohen violates the positive prohibition, that creates a chalal. And they're about to say, no, you only have a chalal if they violate an explicit negative commandment. My time at Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Why is it even a positive commandment creates a chalal? Dichsev almana ugrusha v'chalala zona es ela lo yikach. So he should not marry a widow, a divorcee, the chalala or the zona. Ki im bisula ve'gomer. And then the pasuk concludes, and he shall not disqualify his lineage. So that was going on everything. Akulu, right? That was circling back on the entire statement, including the line of ki im bisula. Rabbanan eila hifsik ha inyan. Right, so when the Torah says eila lo yikach, that puts like a semicolon in there. And that is the only part of the pasuk which the halal line was discussed. As Yaakov Amar, Ela lemiute nida. So Rabbi Yaakov says, no. When the Torah says Ela lo yikach, these he shall not marry, that comes to exclude. That means there is one woman who you would have thought he is not allowed to marry, but actually he can, and that is going to be the nida. Right? The nida is there's a chiyuv kares if somebody has relations with a nida. she's prohibited to him in the moment. But if they got married anyway, that's not going to create halal. So now the Gemara says, "Keman azla hadasanya." According to which Tana is the following brayso? Me'ela ata osa halal, the ata osa halal me nida. Right? These are the women who create. Huh? Oh, these are the women who create a halal, but not the nida. Who is the author of that brayso? So come on, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So according to what we just said a minute ago, that's exactly Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. He darshaned Eila to talk about nida, as opposed to the Chachamim who darshaned Eila, right, to say that it's only the women in the first half of the Mishnah of the pasuk which have a halal. Okay, so Gemara says, Rabbi Yaakov nechtevei le'ela lebasof. So if Eila is not coming to bifurcate the pasuk, it's only coming to exclude a nida. So then it should be written at the end of the pasuk, right? Why did the Torah give us this complication? So Gemara says, Kasha. Okay, so we have a streak in this stuff of good questions which are being left unanswered. Okay, Tanarabana, Achoso Arusa. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit. And we know that a regular Kohen is allowed to become Tameh to his 7 close relatives. One of whom is his unmarried sister. So the general principle behind that is the Kohen is allowed to become Tameh to his dead sister in the event that she is eligible to marry a Kohen. So now we're going to have to discuss some of the gray zone cases. So Tanarbanan Achoso Arusa. What if his sister was betrothed but did not yet have Nisuin? Mary Yehuda Omrim Mitamela. So Rabbi Yehuda say he still is able to become tameh for her if she dies. Rabbi Yosef Rishimon Omrim Ein Mitamela. Right, so it's 2 versus 2. We have to remember this because the Gemara is going to spend the rest of the Yamid kind of referring back to these debates over here. So Rabbi Yehuda say he does become tameh to her. Rabbi Yosef Rishimon says he does not. Anusa umafuta, if his sister had been raped or seduced, divrei hakol ein mitamela. Okay, he's not allowed to marry her. He's not allowed to become tameh to her. Mukas 8 ein mitamela. And if she was if she was Mukas 8, if she had her hymen physically ruptured, then he does not become tameh to her. Divrei Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says, well, why is he so stringent? Rabbi Shimon Omer, Ru'uya lekohen gadol mitamela, she'enu lekohen gadol ein mitamela. Rabbi Shimon's of the opinion that in order for a regular kohen to become tameh for his dead sister, she has to have been eligible to marry a kohen gadol. Okay.
So what about Yossi before the Yossi and the
yeah? So right. So very good. So Gemara's going to ask. Right? Is that the allies are not so loyal to each other? Gemara's going to ask that. Very good. But now hold on a second. If we just said you have to be able to become marry Kohen Gadol, so then what? Any woman whose any sister is over 12 and a half, the Kohen can't become tameh. So the Brisa continues and it says Bogeres metamel divrei kol, divrei kol adam. Right. So everyone agrees that a Kohen can become tameh for his single sister, even though she's over 12 and a half. So now this all needs to be explained. So first, the Gemara says, "My taima during Meir of Rabbi Yehuda. Why did they think that the Kohen can become tameh to his sister who is an arusa?" So they say the Darshi Haki. Here's what they explain: Villa achoso habisula. Right. So his sister who is a virgin. Prat la'anusa mafuta. So that comes to exclude the victim of rape or seduction.
What's a full pasuk there?
I don't know the full pasuk.
Which one?
Amana.
Which one?
לאחותה גדולה גרובה, אלא אשר לא הייתה לאיש לא הייתה.
Right, so Zachasab Shula Asher Lo Hayta Ish. Okay, so we need to figure out Lo Hayta Ish. Right, she wasn't married. What exactly does married mean? Zachasab Shula. So okay, so let's go through it. First, Zachasab Shula Pralanusa Umafuta. So if she was raped or seduced, so then she's no longer basula. So the Kohen's not going to become tameh if she dies. Because we may say that a mukaseitz is not a basula. No, Tamalomar Asher Lo Haisal the Ish. She has to be not a virgin because she was with a man. Ish. Right? The reason why she lost her virginity was just because of physical trauma. That's not included. He can become tameh. Hakrova the Rabos Harusa. Right? He's close to her. That comes to include Yerusa. Hey, every sister is close to her. Those are not Krova love. So it means she has not yet entered, right, the house of her husband. So she still has, stronger family ties with the biological family. That is the Arusa. So he will become Tameh for her, is the opinion from Uzer Shimon. Finally, a love, the Rabo Sabogeres, to him to include Abogeres. So now the Gemara says, Halam Likra, why in a pasuk? Fari Meir, Besula, Afila makes us Besula. Ray Meir is of the opinion here, he thought that a Kohen Gadol can marry a woman who's over 12 and a half. Ray Meir had no age limit. He just said she has to have not, slept with a man. So exactly. So why does he need a pasuk that as a chiddush, a Kohen can become tameh to his sister who is over 12 and a half? So the Gemara says, it's Nelaf Besula Mehasam. So this is Ray Meir's source. You would have thought that the virgin that the Kohen Gadol marries has to be 12 and a half. You would have derived it from the laws, right, of rape and seduction. Malahala Naira Afkan Naira. Just like those halachos apply to only a woman who's 12 to 12 and a half, so too when it comes to the woman who the Kohen Gadol marries. So our pasuk comes along to teach you, a love, the Kohen Gadol is allowed to marry any Besula regardless of her age. Okay, now we go to the next position in that brisa. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon, who thought that the Kohen cannot become tameh to his sister who is an arusa. Why do they think that? So here's how they darshan the pasuk. Darshi hachi, first wide line. Vila alcho soha besula, his virgin sister. Prat lanusim afuta umukas eitz. So that comes to exclude all three, right? The victim of rape, the victim of seduction, and the woman who had physical trauma. She's no longer besula, can't become tameh to her. Ashalo haisa. So if she wasn't married to somebody, prat la arusa, that comes to exclude arusa. The arusa, mazel tov, she's married now, so the Kohen is not going to come to her either. Hakrova, the rabos arusa shenis garsha. So if she had erusin but then got divorced, so then once again the Kohen can become tameh to her. She is now once again close to him, right? A love, Larabos es habogeres. And the love, the same as Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, that comes to include the bogeres. So Gemara has a lot of things. Hakrova, Larabos arusa sheniskarsh. We have a pasuk that he can become tameh to his sister who got engaged and then got divorced. I'm Rabbi Shimon. Right. One of the people here is we have Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi who's on the other seat, and Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Shimon, remember, said that the Kohen can't even become tameh to a mukas eitz, right? So because she's ineligible for a Kohen Gadol. If a woman has kiddushin and then gets divorced, of course she can't marry a Kohen Gadol. She's a grusha. So what's going on? So the Gemara says, right, third line. Yeah, exactly. Right, Kal v'chomer, 100%. So Shani Hasam, the Rabbi Rachmana Haka Krova. That's exactly where the Torah says, right? Here's an exception. There's one exception, one woman who cannot marry Kohen Gadol, but the Kohen will become tameh too, and that is if the sister gets engaged and then gets divorced. So now the Gemara says, well, hold on a second. Once we have exceptions, why are we picking and choosing? Ihachi Rukas Eitz Nami. Right, so why can't, according to Rabbi Shimon, why can't the Kohen become tameh to his sister who's a mukas eitz? Why can't that be the krova? If anything, right, she's just as close to him as the woman who was engaged and divorced. So the Gemara says, no. Krova achas v'lo shtayim. You only get one shot, right? Torah gave you one bullet to fire. So ma'arois. So why did we choose the arusa who got divorced rather than choose the woman who's a mukas eitz? The answer is woman who's a mukas eitz had a physical change. The woman who just had kiddushin, so all she had a ring put on her finger. Now the ring's off the finger. She never changed. Okay. Now, where it says, we were talking before, Rabbi Yossi, the Shavke Labar Zuge, right? So they broke up, right? Because at first Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon were on the same team when they said that the Kohen cannot become tameh to his sister.
That he can marry.
No, so Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon said Ein Matamila. They said Ein Matamila. He does not become tameh for his sister who's engaged.
Right.
Well, no, he's definitely not allowed. No, a Kohen cannot marry a woman who had.
No, but end the tameh.
Meaning he can't go to her, he can't bury her, right? He can't go to her funeral.
So
right?
Right.
So, but then Rabbi Shimon alone said that said mukas eitz. So what is why did they break up over here? So Rabbi Yossi with the Shavke Labar Zuge. When Rabbi Yossi left his teammate, Mechal mukas eitz kamer sphere. So apparently, Meir thought that Mukas hates the Kohen can become tamei too. Right? If it's only if his sister got engaged, he can't become tamei to her. But if she just lost her virginity physically, then he totally can. So so now we have a problem because now we're going to mix and match with how he darshans the psukim. So minale milo haisal ish. So because Torah said she was not to any man. So, but hold on. Sorry, so lo haisal ish. So that includes Mukas hates. Mukas hates was never married to anybody, so he can become tamei to her. But the Gemara says, hold on. The ha afikte. He already used lo haisal ish. Lo haisal ish came not to include the Mukas hates, it came to exclude the arusa. So what's going on? How can you can't use one pasuk to teach you two things? No double dipping. So Gemara says, no, we're not double dipping. There are two drush. There are multiple words. Chad mi lo haisa. The chad me leish. Okay, so one comes from she was not to. Right now, that already tells you all we care about is marriage, and therefore the mukas eitz is fine. And then li'ish, she wasn't with the man, and that means she has to be with him all the way. Therefore erusin does not meet the bar, so he still can become tamei to his sister who is an arusa. Right? He cannot become tamei to his wife who is sister arusa. Any connection to the man is a problem. Okay, yeah. Now a love the Rabbo Sabogeres. The last line we had.
They also said that she has to be right for her Kohen Gadol.
But that was only Rabbi Shimon.
Oh,
right. Rabbi Yossi rejects that. Oh, yeah. Okay, so now the last line, and this everybody agreed to, was a love Rabos Habogeres. Right? What the woman is, if it's just because his sister is a Bogeres, the Kohen certainly can and has to become tamei to her.
Wasn't it for Nida? No, different.
That was which line was Nida?
Oh, was Nida.
No, that was Ayla. Ayla, close. Yeah, I know. It's a little confusing, right? Needs a blackboard. This whole thing. Yeah. So okay, so Ayla is Bogeres. So let's talk about that. I'm assuming my place. Okay. Amar B'Shimon Besula Shlema Mashma. So Rabbi Shimon, why is it true? Rabbi Shimon's inconsistent. Rabbi Shimon told us before that the woman has to be eligible to marry a Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Shimon also is of the opinion that a Kohen Gadol cannot marry a Bogeres because she needs to have a fully intact hymen. So why is he married? Why is it Kohen becoming tamei to his Bogeres sister? So wait, tamei didanami hasam mehacha darish. So all the drashas go together. Darish hachi de a love the Rabos Bogeres. Since it starts to go out of its way to tell you that a Kohen becomes tamei to a sister who is a Bogeres. So why does Tanya do that, right? Why does Torah have to go out of its way to tell me a Kohen becomes tamei to a sister who is a Bogeres? Mechlal, the besula shlema mashma must be that there's something going on over here, and that is that a woman who is a Bogeres cannot marry a Kohen Gadol, right? And that's why the Torah here has to tell you an exception to the rule. Okay. Now we're going to have a total shift of gears for the rest of the Amud. Tanya, we have a brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Okay, so we're going from him. It's appropriate. So Omer Giores Pechusa Miba Shalosh Shanim. If a woman converts to Judaism and she is less than 3 years and 1 day old, Keshera lekahuna. She is able to marry a Kohen. She is not presumed to have had relations. She is not prohibited as a zona. Shneamar Dechol Hataf. Binashim asher lo yadu mishkav zachar hichyu achayu lachem. Thank you. Right. So when Bnei Yisrael fight against Midian and they bring back all the captives, so right. So they're told that any of the young women, girls who have never been with a man can be kept alive. Everyone else has to die because that's why they had this war in the first place, because they all seduced Bnei Yisrael with Baal Peor. So what does that do with the Kohen? So the Gemara says, who was the Pinchas was a Mashoch Lachama, he was with them. So everybody in theory is able to marry these women, including Pinchas the Kohen. Rabbanan, no, lavadim shvachos. You're not keeping them alive to marry. You're keeping them alive. They're going to be slaves and maidservants. Okay. Ihachi bashal shanim v'yom echad nami. So we should also, even if somebody is 3 days and 1 year, 3 years and 1 day, right? Why does it have to be less than that? We should get that extra day. For the Rav Huna Rami Ksiv, we have a contradiction. On one hand, we're told Kol isha yodas ish lemishkav zachar harog. Any woman who has known a man sexually, you must kill. Ha'eni yodas kaimu. Right, so anyone who hasn't to keep alive, it's only the isha, it's only the woman the Torah says you have to kill. So it implies that all the children were kept alive. But then then we're told all the girls who did not know anybody sexually, you keep alive. So if the girls had sexual relations, you have to kill them. So how do we resolve the contradiction? So the Torah is talking about not whether they actually had relations or not, whether they are able to do so. Tanya Mihachi, the Bryce tells us, hey, very good. It's only eligibility. How do you know it's theoretical? Maybe it means they actually were with a man. Because we have that second pasuk, the Torah talks about the young girl who didn't know anybody sexually. And the way we said to resolve those two psukim is to say we're talking about only theoretical eligibility. Okay. Minayadi. Now they didn't have birth certificates, right? So how could they tell? So Amr Huna Bar Bizna, Amr Bishim Chasida, Havirum Lifte Hatzitz. So they would pass them all before the tzitz the Kohen Gadol was wearing. Kol Shapana Morikos Biadoshi Ruili Bal. Anybody who their face would turn yellow. So
green.
and I think it's yarok, like yellow. I think it was turned sallow.
It's like
They translate it green. Yeah, Esther. Esther's not green. Esther's really yellow. Right. So those it's a myth. Yeah, it means a sallow face. Yeah, yarok kakarsi, right? Is green, but stam yarok is usually yellow. Yeah. So okay, but exactly, very good. Yep. Okay, which that's both. That's all. That's both colors. But yeah, okay. So anyway, if she turns yellow, the face turns sallow. She walks by the tits. So you know she's really bal. Last time, like kol shape and in really bal. Okay. Now Amr of Nachman Simon la'avira hadrukan. So a sign that a person has been involved in forbidden sexual relations is they suffer from the illness of, how do you pronounce that? Hydrokan. I spent a little while looking this up last night. Hydro is in there, right? Excess of fluid. This is exactly suffering bloatedness.
First term. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And that's also associated with the skin often gets sallow as well. Goes with Avarata Omer. So this is at the end of the whole civil war of Pilegesh Begiva. They have to figure out how they're going to marry off the men of the survivors of Shevet Binyamin. So they had 400 virgin women from Yavesh Gilad. Now, Minayadi, how did they know? Amr of Kahana says they used the old test, which will have in Ksubis. Hoshivim al pi chavesh al yayin. So they sat them on top of a wine barrel. Right? So the smell goes right up if it's ve'ula. Okay, so exactly. So now the Gemara says, so this is it's kind of funny, but this is really interesting. So why not? Why did they do the same move? Why not? Have the women pass by the tzitz to figure out if they're basulos or not. Some Rav Kahana Breder of Nasan liratzon lahem. The Torah says that the tzitz is liratzon, right? It's to give approval or positive. It's fine. It's positive. That's what goes positive. Liratzon v'lo l'paranis. The tzitz is only there to get us closer to God. It's not there for punishment. Very, very interesting. Now the Gemara says, hold on a second. Midianami. Well, what about those girls from Midian? No, they're getting punished on the tzitz. Amar Rashi, lahem ksiv, lahem the ratzon l'pranis. No, if you're Jewish, then it's only for ratzon. Lo zekachavim afil l'pranis. When it comes to the idolaters, then all bets are off. Okay. Amar Yaakov Ra'idi, Amar Bishua ben Levi, halach Rishon bar Yochai. So he quotes Rishon ben Levi. That Rishon ben Yochai is how we paskin that a kohen can marry a woman who converted if she was younger than 3 years old, and one day. Did you hear Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi say that explicitly, or did you deduce that from something else? Now, clearly he suspects something. My klala. What?
3-year-old is not a person.
Okay, so hold off for that until we get to Maseches Ketubos, but that's also complicated. Yes. Okay. So yeah, Michala. What was the general statement from which we may have deduced that Rabbi Shimon Levi, if somebody passed like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that the Kohen can marry the Gioris? So what is it? Sorry. Let's see, last place. Back it up. Okay. My klala. Rabbi Shimon Levi. Ir echad haya be'eretz Yisrael. Shekara alea irer. So there was a city, Eretz Yisrael. There's a family there, and there was an accusation that the members of that family had some znus in their history, something not right, and therefore that they could not marry Kohanim. The Shagar Rebbe is Rabbi Rumnus. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he dispatched Rabbi Rumnus to go investigate the rumors. Uvbadka umatza ba bas giores pechusa mibas shaloshan v'yomacha. So what they had in their lineage was the daughter of a giores who converted at the age of less than 3 in a day. V'chshira Rabbi LeKahuna. And Rabbi said, great, if that's the only reason for the rumor, we can dismiss the rumor and the members of this family can marry Kohanim. So maybe that's the general statement that you're deducing from. So Rabbi Yaakov Aridi said, no, Amalei, fair Shmieli. I heard Rabbi Shimon Levi tell me explicitly that we pass like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, the Gemara asks, V'imi klalamai. It sounds like he was setting him up, that if he was deducing from a story of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, then we would have been able to reject it. Why? It's a pretty strong piece of evidence, no? So Gemara says, Dilmashani Hasam, how the insiv. It could be that in that story, the marriage had already taken place, and we're going to be more makil on a b'diavad level than on a lechatchila level, right? It's possible a paskin like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai b'diavad, but we're not going to paskin like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lechatchila. Why? So Rav Rabbi Yochanan Damri Tarvayu Bogeras Mukaseitz Lo Yisa. We had this earlier on the daf, right? That he should not marry the Bogeras Mukaseitz. Vim Nasanasui, but b'diavad we did it. Hey, it works. Okay, so Gemara says, well, that's a bad kasha. We gave the reason why he can remain married to her. So Filius Bogeras Tachta, so Filius Ula Tachta, right? Eventually, the woman's going to become a Bogeras and become a Mukaseitz. Sofa Leo Zona Tachta, that's ridiculous. So if he's allowed to marry a woman who's under 3 in a day, that is clear evidence that it's not, that is totally permissible. Okay, now that story would have us paskin like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But now the Gemara is going to conclude with a different version, with a different result. Safra Masli la Michlala Bekashale Umashanile. So he deduced from the story, and he asked that question, and he gave this exact answer. Now let's have the other story. Hahu Kahana the incident some Kohen married a woman who had converted at the age of less than 3 in a day. Amalei of Nachum Bar Yitzchak, my hi, what are you doing? Amalei, Damar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, Rabbi Shimon Levi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's fine. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi said that I could do this. Amalei Zil Apik, go get divorced. V'lo, and if you don't divorce the woman, Mafik Delach, I'm going to throw you out. Trash says I'm going to put you on chayrim. Sorry, Mafik Delach, Rabbi Yossi Bar Idi Me'onach. I'm going to throw Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi out of your ear. In other words, I'm going to put you on chayrim. So apparently, from that story, we do not pass on Rabbi Yochai, and the Kohen should not marry a woman who converted each birth at less than 3.
What's the best line? He says? Was that about